Well, good morning, my fellow travelers. Your traveling buddy here, coming today from Port Huron. And I'm still out here by the International Bridge, going over to Canada. There's Canada right over there, right across there. See all the seagulls out here. And I had another successful night boondocking. Believe it or not, I originally was going to try to boondock at a Walmart. But then I noticed, I started looking around here and, it was pretty clear. I was like, I could probably try and boondock here. Well, I did it. Believe it or not. There's a park. The park I showed you in the last video where Thomas Edison's house used to be. Right over there. I went right up there on the hill. And yes, there was cops that came through, but they didn't bug me. I slept there all night, right, overlooking this. Saw the bridge all lit up all night long. It was beautiful. Woke up to a beautiful sunset or a sunrise, and I pulled over here, because there's actually a Port Huron right over there, so I actually had bathroom facilities, so it turned out pretty good. I think for my first time doing this boondocking thing, I've done pretty good. I found some pretty cool spots to boondock at. I love it. Look at this. Look at the sun shining right there. That's bright. You see the casino across the street, across the river, or the lake. Actually, the canal, the port. This is the port. Look at this. And I seen this guy over here. See that little flag right there? Somebody's actually out here scuba diving. I don't know what he's scuba diving for, but he's out here scuba diving. Right out here. Turned out pretty good, this trip. And this is my final day, though. I gotta be heading home later this afternoon. Vacation's almost over. This video here, though, it's not totally about my boondocking, but my plan is today, before I head home, I'm visiting that place right over there. That is the Thomas Edison Museum. See how the train car is right there by that red building? We're gonna go check that place out. So travel with me, will you? Okay, here we are in front of the museum. This is a depot museum. This is an old train depot right here, but unfortunately they're not open till noon, and it's only about 10 o'clock. So I got 2 hours before they open. I'll take you around the outside of the building. They got little plaques here. All aboard. This is the Fort Great Station. It welcomed immigrants, settlers, military, and other travelers to Port Huron during the late 19th century. Grand Trunk Railway built this depot in 1858 and launched daily passenger services to Detroit. The following year, the early 1860s, young Thomas Edison worked on the train selling newspapers and snacks to the passengers. Here's a picture of the train depot. It says making tracks. The Grand Trunk Railway Company of Canada opened the first track between here and Detroit in 1859. As years passed, other railroads reached Port Huron. The line to Flint opened in 1871. Another extended into the Thumb in 1879. In 1886, the Port Huron Electric Railway Company, with Michigan's first electric streetcar, transported passengers between this depot and downtown Port Huron. The Grand Trunk built the world's first international underwater railway tunnel under the St. Clair River, and passes between Port Huron and Sarnia, Ontario, began in 1891. And there's the train. There's the conductors. Yeah. That's cool. Edison's home. See, Thomas Edison was 7 years old in 1854 when he and his family moved to Port Huron. They moved into the house of the Fort Grant military reservation, a short distance south of here. This is where our young Al conducted his first experiment in chemistry and electricity. He left Port Huron in 1863, and his family moved out of this house in 1865. 5 years later, it was destroyed by fire. Railroad tracks laid on the site protected Edison's family artifacts, still buried there. When archaeologists excavated this area 100 years later, we learned more about the young inventor's life. So, yeah, he wasn't born in this house, but he lived there for quite a few years. And where they're talking about where his house was, it was right up there, basically where I was sleeping. That's where his house used to be. Notice here too that they have other things, admission rates. Single site admission, $10. Family single sites, $25. Huron experience, $28. Family Huron experience, $65. Adult membership, $48. Family membership, $85. I think that's like a yearly right there. Students and seniors discount $3 off. And I've heard that there's other things you can do. See, we're at the Thomas Edison Museum. That would cost $10 just to come in here. The light ship, that's another one that I would like to do that someday. Gardner Center, Fort Grant Light Station. Oh, so the lighthouse, you can tour that too. So those are the things I'm going to put on my list for the future. But today we're exploring Thomas Edison Depot. And of course, like everything else, masks are required inside. So you have to wear a mask in here. Guys, got my mask on and let's head in to the museum. This is the guys are going to tell us about this museum.
Well, my name's Dave Dazer. I'm the site manager here. I'm a lifelong Thomas Edison fan. This building was built in 1858 by the Grand Trunk Railroad. 1859, Tom Edison was 12 years old, living with his mom and dad, brother and sister down on the river here. And he got a job riding the train to Detroit every day, and he sold things to passengers on the way there and on the way back. He did that for 4 years, till one day in Mount Clemens, he saved the station master's son from being killed by a runaway train car. And as a reward, the man taught him how to be a telegraph operator, and that changed his whole life. In fact, many of his first patents were improvements to the telegraph. His best improvement, I think, was he figured out a way to send 4 messages on one wire. Before he came along, you could send 1 message in one direction, then he figured out how to do 2, 1 in each direction, and then 4. So most of the expense of a telegraph line was putting the wire up, and he quadrupled the system without adding any more wires, so that was pretty cool. This movie showing here is called Young Tom Edison. Starred Mickey Rooney at age 20 as Thomas Edison, and it's all about him growing up here in Port Huron.
Really?
The fun thing is the world premiere for that movie was held here in 1940.
Really?
Mickey Rooney came, Tom Edison's widow, Mina Edison, was here, Louis B. Mayer of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studios, Father Flanagan of Boys Town, who was much more well known then than he is today. But there was a big event, this world premiere of the movie. We have a display out in the breezeway here between here and the old train car. You can check that out. You can see Mrs.
Cool.
Edison's little letter that she's going to come, and one on White House stationery from Eleanor Roosevelt that she can't make it, and Herbert Hoover's letter, he can't come, telegrams from Edison's kids. it's pretty cool. So,
I'll definitely have to look that up. Well, thank you for the information.
you're welcome. If you follow
There's a picture of Thomas Edison when he was just 4 years old.
Okay,
Right there.
so I didn't get my password, but I figured another way to get in. So see, I go into
That's cool that they, and
and I put in Harvard.
he's giving me, he said he'll give me any information on what he do. That was his parents right there. In 1811, 3 generations of Edisons took up farming near Binya, Ontario. Among them was Samuel Oregon Edison Ogden Jr., a single farm maker, tailor, tavern keeper, who would marry Nancy and Matthew Elliott. That must be him. Samuel Ogden Edison Jr. Nancy Matthews Elliott Edison. There's the house. Thomas Edison was born February 11th, 1847 in the house in Milan, Ohio. So that's the house he was born in. Then they moved here. Picture of Edison when he was 10 years old. Thomas Alva Edison, age 10. The gun maker of Moscow. From this book, Al Edison and his buddies got their idea for a secret club and cave clubhouse. That's cool. I'll check this out. See this trumpet? It says here, a bugle such as this may have landed Edison in trouble with the Fort Great soldiers. He must have been causing trouble. At 10 years old, probably blowing the horn. And they probably thought they were under attack. Picture that of the actual house that he lived in. It burned down. They said it burned down. Right there in this newspaper article is there's no place like home, especially if Edison lived there. Here's a picture. It kind of shows what their farm looked like. That was their house. Right there it says here, by the 1860s, the Grand Trunk Railroad ran between the house and the fort. Not long after the Edison moved out, and the house later burned. By the 1800s, the railroad track lay over the house site, covering its secret until archaeologists uncovered evidence of the Edison's stay there. Here's some of the artifacts. There's actually a thing you can push. There's the artifacts from the house from when they lived there. It's a bottle. It's like a plate, spoon, little pieces. There's a magnifying glass there. So those little pieces. Okay, see what this is. See, it says Chem Lab 101, and look right there. And then you push the button, it lights up, and you see Edison mixing the chemicals. This is utensils.
This is cool. He printed a newspaper on. He was kicked off the train when he caught it on fire with his chemical laboratory. So he brought his printing equipment home, and he printed the paper there, and they found that in the cellar of his boyhood home.
These are from the printing for where you used to make newspapers. Right there, he just showed. That's what that magnifying shows. That is cool that they found that. Yeah, there's like how they made the newspaper. How they printed it out. You just came up and told me that.
Much of my youth in the cellar of this house, pursuing chemistry and electricity the way many of my peers pursued sports and adventure. Down here I amassed no fewer than 200 bottles, collected from all over town. I labeled each of them poison so that no one else would disturb or even handle them. Their contents, the chemicals with which I was constantly working, tested the statements I had read in books. Here too I'd explore the science of electrical batteries. Mother would occasionally tire of my domination of the cellar and of what she saw as the mess produced by my work there. She was more than a little afraid, too, of what kind of destruction my experiments might cause. Still, she'd come faithfully to check on me, often with pie and milk in hand. A more real limit on my pursuits was economic. I quickly ran through pocket money long before my curiosity ran out. That's what led me to seek the news butcher post on the Grand Trunk Railroad. From Port Huron to Detroit, back each day. On that train, I would later come to establish a new chemical laboratory and a printing shop besides. But here's where it began.
Here we have, this could have been Edison's mother's makeup kit. This lady's fashion. And it lights her up. Goes school. Thing is about his school. Look, he didn't look too happy there. It says here, young Al Edison was often sick. Scarlet fever may have damaged his hearing, although he often said he was trained conductor, boxing his ears or lifting him onto a train by his ears. That caused his deafness.
Later than most children due to poor health. It was a late start and a poor start. My mind would often work in advance of the schoolmasters, and often in a different direction. You know, my hearing even then wasn't all it could be. Well, I guess I gave it a shit. And one day, even with poor hearing, I clearly heard him tell the school inspector that I was addled. Addled. I was crushed, fled crying, and rushed to my mother's arms. I told her what Mr. Crawford had said, and the next thing I knew, the door slammed shut behind the both of us. It was off to school again. Now, I was afraid, but I knew this would be a most interesting experiment.
Mr. Crawford, please explain yourself. Thomas Albert led your classroom in tears today, your words stinging in his ears and burning his heart. Albert indeed. His intellectual powers tower above yours. Perhaps your lessons don't have enough substance to command his considerable attentions. Perhaps the world he creates in his drawing is more compelling than the one he finds in your classroom. Perhaps this young boy can learn more at his mother's knee than he can in the classroom of Mr. Crawford. We'll certainly see if that's true. I'll school him myself, and all will see that he's not addled.
That goes to show, you don't mess with the mama. Mama knows best. Is that where we saw in the window? That was Edison doing telegraph. I guess he said he increased, worked on that. He said, made it better. And here's the telegraph right here, see? Actually, you can, listen to that. I'm making a message. Subscribe to the Traveling Buddy. Subscribe to the Traveling Buddy. This is see him with the cat. It says here's Al Edison knew about static electricity, so he tried rubbing a cat to produce a charge. The cat violently refused to cooperate. The cat's like, "What are you doing?" Here's more about the telegraph. Al Edison learned his early telegraph skills by trial and error. With a buddy, Al Edison built a neighborhood telegraph system, copying up stovepipe wire and keys made of bits of brass, all installed with rags and glass bottles. It worked well enough that Al convinced his dad to let him stay up late to get more news by wire. And this must be it. See. Yes. Here's where he was making the newspapers. On a train leaving this depot each day, young Al Edison launched his career as an interpreter and inventor.
I
And there he is, Al Edison, news butcher.
That's what led me to
Not sure how old he was there,
butcher
but
post on the Grand Trunk
there's
Railroad
one of his papers right there.
from Port Huron to Detroit.
See how small that is?
On that train, I would later come to establish.
As interest built, Edison raised his prices. Oh, quickly y'all learn
Here's where it began.
about how to spot market creator custom interests. After important Civil War battle, he pursued the Detroit Free Press to advance with extra copies, then talked to a telegrapher into sending bulletins describing the battle to all stations. His train would list at each stop. He posted the price. His eager customers paid for the paper. Also sold fruits and stuff like that. Make money. He probably made money for the family. Simon Edison got his son all a job news butcher on the train that made Port Huron director round trip. Each day the layovers he studied in the library, the Young Men's Society underway on the train. He sold newspapers, fresh vegetables, and often other items to passenger people along the way. It says Tales from the Tracks. Along the tracks between Port Huron and Detroit, Al Edison displayed his inventive, mischievous character. Every day the train carried Edison from Port Huron to Detroit and back. And there's the train. We saw that outside. That picture. Edison said his use of baggage car, the chemistry lab, and the print shop ended one day when a chemistry experiment went wrong and set the car on fire. The train conductor tossed the chemistry equipment, the printing press, and the chemist's printer off the train at Smith's Creek station. When the conductor bounced Al in his gear, chemical bottles like this likely littered the trackside. And there they are. Some more artifacts that they found. There's a door hinge, possibly, or a cabinet hinge. A piece of wood, burned wood. That looks like a door dock. Yeah, there's a key. And one of the bricks. And over here, pipe. Scissors. Those are scissors. See that? Buttons. Marbles. Tell a story about where he saved somebody right here, and there's one of the buttons right here that tells you about it. Right here. Oh.
You know that son of mine, Thomas Edison, never had any...
That's cool. This is a Black Maria. Welcome to the recreation of the Thomas Edison's Black Maria, the world's first motion picture studio. And you see the actual picture. This is a recreation though. And you go in here. There's a bench in here. TV up there. And there's a picture of Edison. There's a button. Push.
I'm glad to be back in Port Huron once again. That's what I told a newspaper reporter many years ago. And today I'm glad to be here again to welcome you to the Thomas Edison Depot Museum. Ah, the light bulb. One of my best known inventions, but not my only one, and not my favorite. We'll talk about my favorite a little later. You know,
This is probably going to go on for a while, so I'm not going to film the whole thing, but don't want to get copyrighted either. Picture of the house right there. The actual picture of the house.
The light bulb.
His mother and father right there.
One of my best known inventions. But not
This is famous too. Very first record player, basically. Please don't touch. Asked for a demonstration. Oh, yeah, because remember. And if you remember, what was his very first recording? Mary Had a Little Lamb. I see one of these, makes me think of that picture of that dog with his ear up against it. Look at the flowers in there. Yeah, I just saw this. I might have to go. I passed by that. Thomas Edison purchased a large family gravestone. It stands at Lakeside Cemetery. And I actually passed by that cemetery. I might stop there. Hometown hero. As the years rolled by, Thomas Edison in Port Huron, the town of his boyhood, came to appreciate each other more and more. And look at this big light bulb. That rock I saw yesterday, dedicated to where his house was. This is cool. Turn the crank 1 on the side of the cabinet until it stops. Push the button, push the below level 2 down to release the sound cylinder. Listen to Thomas Edison's voice. So, I don't know, do you talk into that? No, I just crank it, because that's the thing you used to talk into. See? Mary had a little lamb. That was the first words spoke on that. That one there came later. This was the first one. I don't think that's the original one, but that's what it looked like. This is something a lot of people that have tattoos should know about. This is the electric pen that Edison created. You see that? That was the electric pen, which later was reinvented to be a tattoo machine. That's the original. Right there, see? See how it used to write? And then later on they used to do that and give you tattoos. It's going to show me how that works. No, go ahead. You go.
This one left the factory in 1903, so it's 117 years old. Spring wound motor, no electricity or amplification.
Yeah. Isn't that cool? We come out here to the actual train car. That's out there. You actually go in there. There's a picture of that Mickey Rooney, that movie, Young Thomas Edison. I'm gonna have to look that up. I want to watch that. These are all pictures from the movie. See? Young Thomas Edison. There's Mickey Rooney. That's Thomas Edison. And they said he premiered it here at the Desmond Theater. Wow. The world premiere. Family Theater. There's Mickey Rooney again. That's cool. Western Union about the thing, following a list of executives that invented the ride of that address General Electric Company. Look at all the people that were invited there. Look, that's cool. They have an elevator that'll take, if you're in a wheelchair, you can't go up in the car. They have a wheelchair access. You just go in there and they take you up. All of Mickey Rooney's signature, look, all the props from the movie, and Mickey Rooney posing as the news butcher with Mina Edison, who's the important letter he was telling me about, that Eleanor Roosevelt was invited, but she couldn't attend. My dear Cara Casing, Mrs. Roosevelt is very sorry that she will not be able to address the Lutheran, which is to be given on February 10th as part of the celebration of Edison Day at Port Huron. She dearly appreciates your kind invitation, but regrets her here make it possible for her to accept it. Letter 2, where Herbert Hoover, that I regret very much that I will not be able to accept, as I'm making a speech in Chicago on the date of mention. So Hoover couldn't make it either. Picture of Edsel Ford, and Henry Ford became good friends with Edison. He come up in the train car. Mobile experiments and enterprise. So this is probably where he did his experiments. So you can see that's where he made his newspapers. See the little letters and stuff. That's the roller right there. See, here's the printing press. Put the paper on there, roll it. There's a basket of apples and stuff you used to be able to sell. See, he's got straps, see? There's where the building the first bridge. Right over there. Look at that barge. You look right out the window of the train. Look at the boats going by. That was a cool museum. Now we're gonna go over to the cemetery where we saw that picture of the big gravestone, and his family is buried out there. He's buried in New Jersey, but his family is buried right out here. Hey guys, I'm here in the Lakeview Cemetery right here. And I'm looking for the Edison grave where his parents and his sister is buried, other relatives. Like I said, he's not buried here. He's buried in New Jersey. Guys, I found it. Here it is. The Edison family gravesite. Right here, see the big rock says Edison. We saw Thomas Edison standing somewhere right here when they put this out here. And right here is a lot of his family. Lucille Chapel, 1883 to 1949. Neil Poyer, 1858 to 1947. C.P. Edison, 1860 to 1879. W.P. Edison, 1832 to 1891. Mary O. Poyer, 1904 to 1991. Oh, wait a minute. That's a newer one. Well, it could be Charles Edison Boyer, 1892 to 1981. So they're still being buried out here, his family. Over here, Samuel Edison, 1804 to 1896. Nancy Edison, 1810 to 1871. Taney Bailey, 1833 to 1863. And Samuel Bailey, 1840 to 1861. So these are all the family of Thomas Edison. Surprised he didn't have himself brought back here and be buried, you know, with his family. But, you know, that's how it goes. And you wonder why this is called Lakeview Cemetery? Check this out. Look across the street. You got a big view of the lake, and that's the beach. There's actually people swimming out there and all that, with this big cemetery right behind it. Now, isn't that a view? I mean, they named it right, Lakeview Cemetery. Alright, my fellow travelers, that's going to be about it for this little tour around the Edison Train Depot down there at the Grand Trunk Railroad Depot down there in the museum. It was awesome. The guy was real nice in there and all the information he told me about. And then they'd be able to come down here and find his family's grave sites. This was great. But unfortunately, I have to be heading back home. I have to get home and edit all these videos I just made for you guys and get them up for you. And then eventually back to work. You know, there's so much history here though. I'm going to have to come back here. Definitely going to come back here. There's other things I wanted to do, but I didn't have time to do it. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Share me out. Share me out with all your social media. Tell your friends, tell your family about me. Help me grow this channel so I can continue traveling and showing you things like this. So until next time, my fellow travelers, I'll see you around the mitten.